Big shout out to moderator on my Discord, The Digital Burrow, as well as frequent commenter and subscriber, The Will of Dreams, because a conversation that we've been having for a while now is that what if a previous slow fruit user created the calm belt, slowing and or permanently stopping all the natural phenomena that would happen in that stretch of ocean. But now, thanks to their devil fruit abilities, they have, I guess, permanently terraformed the weather patterns of that area. So now it's just still. No wind, no waves, right? And we talked about this in a previous video a while ago. I'll put a link about it up here somewhere. But they recently left another comment on my video talking about Davy D. Jones and how goofy the Davy back fights are, right? And what the Will of Dreams is talking about here is that what if Emu has a device that uses the powers of the slow fruit and that has had greater repercussions on the One Piece world at large, perhaps leading to the possibility of there being a void century or a grand number of things. And it really did get me thinking about some things that have happened in One Piece. Now, in One Piece, there are only two lasers that exist. As far as we know, there is the laser that is created by the powers of the Glint fruit, Kizaru's fruit, and there are the lasers created by the slow fruit held by Foxy. Now we know, based on the engineering prowess of Vegapunk, that he is able to somehow harness the energy of the Glint fruit and put it in different mechanisms. And then multiple people have copied these blueprints. That's why you get just about all the cyborgs in One Piece beyond a certain point using lasers like Queen and Frankie. Then you have the Pacifistas, which were created by Vegapunk. And most recently, we have the Seraphim, which are these weird genetic mutants that may be cybernetic because they can also summon these lasers out of their hands, right? So all of that does prove that lasers from devil fruit powers can be implemented into other devices. So keeping that in mind, shouldn't that be the same for the slow fruit, seeing as how the slow fruit is a laser? And what's also kind of weird about the slow fruit, and it's really out of character seeing as how we know Foxy's a bit of a goofball, cunning but a goofball, we find out that the slow fruit is this weird undiscovered particle that science hasn't really unlocked the secrets of yet. But he gives this very intelligent breakdown about his ability, and it's kind of weird that such a goofy character like him would be equipped to give such a scientific breakdown of how his powers actually work. But from his explanation, we do know that it is a laser, that he shoots lasers. But what's interesting about this is that we don't really know if it's undiscovered yet, because the thing about it is that if that was recorded in the Devil Fruit Encyclopedia, somebody must have had it before him. That's why I think the information on it might have just been lost. I don't think it's undiscovered, because it makes it seem like this fruit didn't exist before he had it. And I don't think that's necessarily true, because what's weird about him too is that we don't know when he ate it. But seeing as how there are only two lasers in a series, I think it's very possible that somebody in the distant past could have used these powers and manipulated them into that of a weapon that could be used on a wide number of places or areas, or even over the scope of the entire planet. We don't really know how far the power can go, but seeing as how Kizaru's lasers can be put into machinery, I don't understand why Foxy's lasers couldn't be put into machinery, because I could believe too, going even further back, that Vegapunk's original designs could have come from somewhere else. Maybe the original designs used in incorporating the beams generated by the slow fruit into machinery. Maybe he just retrofitted that same technology for it to work for the glint lasers generated by Kizaru's fruit. So it begs to reason that these two probably aren't too dissimilar in how they've been used over the course of One Piece's history. But in addition to that, what I find very funny about Foxy himself, and why I think this whole using the slow fruit's abilities in machinery probably was a thing in the past, is that we don't hear from Foxy after the Davy Bat fight arc for years in real time. We see him in anime filler, but we never really see him in the manga. When do we see him in the manga, however? When? We see him in the manga during Vegapunk's speech. So it's very funny that the first time we see him after years in the manga is when Vegapunk is speaking. The only other character other than Kizaru that is associated with laser technology. And I find that very funny. So that's interesting that he doesn't come up until Vegapunk comes up. So I think maybe in that way, they're connected narratively by the incorporation of laser technology in the series, presumably. Because otherwise, there's no real connecting thread between the two. So it's kind of random that Foxy shows up during Vegapunk's speech. And this is before we even get into any other information about Davy Back fights. That's not a thing at all at this point. So the only connecting thread is laser technology. So that's why I could believe that in the past, perhaps, somebody used the powers of the slow fruit and incorporated the lasers into machinery somehow. And in incorporating the powers of the slow fruit into machinery, a wide number of things could have been done. And also, just saying, over the years, we have seen Foxy in filler. But the important part about these fillers is that during one particular filler called Adventure of Nebulandia, Foxy is able to use multiple slow beams to make an object seemingly halt for 30 seconds. And this technique is called slower. So it's interesting that this filler arc, though it's non-canon, does provide a very interesting thought that, yeah, the slow fruit can almost halt the momentum completely of an object if multiple beams are applied. And this isn't an outlandish addition to be added to a filler. This seems like an actual possibility. Another interesting topic that I almost forgot that does actually occur within the canon of One Piece is that the slow beams have been channeled through an object before. And when they are channeled through an object, specifically a wooden sword hilt in this case, they do have a weird different effect, because Foxy uses the technique called slow beam sword, in which he channels his slow beams through a wooden sword hilt, and they come out looking like a weird laser sword whip of some sort. And using this weird laser sword whip, he's able to shackle parts of an opponent's body in place for 30 seconds. And not the whole body as what these slow beams normally do. So this is interesting because now we're seeing that the slow beams can be concentrated and used in different ways and manipulated in particular ways for particular purposes. So it's not really beyond the realm of belief that a person could harness the powers of the slow fruit into an object and then fire that object to produce a different effect. I think that is very possible. So thank you, Will of Dreams, for that comment. I did say we would talk about it again, and here we are. So thank you so much. Very good question. Very good comment. And I can't wait to see if more comes of Foxy in the future, because this really is an interesting fruit. And it's the only fruit to have the connotation of being an undiscovered particle, which we don't know how true that is. But it's interesting that this weird scientific breakdown is given by Foxy of all people. But anyway, if you are enjoying the video so far, click the like button. And if you want to see more from me, click the subscribe button followed by that bell so you never miss a video. In addition to, if you could, hit the hype button because it really does help. With that being said, give me your thoughts and tell your friends about Polypede.
What?